really bad for the Nigerian guy, and he had to keep his camera vertical on his phone because he just like he didn't want people to see his apartment because there was just all he had was a mosquito net. You know what I mean? And it was like, oh, that poor guy. Like he feels like he doesn't have enough like Disney knickknacks. Like I don't want. That's disgusting. I don't want him to think that I'm proud. I'd rather have a mosquito net. Are you kidding me? I feel bad.
Yeah, but you have your own comic, like.
Psychopath. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Okay,
Oh
so I sent
God.
him the link. And yeah, we got to talk about the drug wars things. There's stuff I have to say about this too.
Right.
So we'll get into it. I sent him the link. Yeah, I hope he is recognizing this.
Oh, they. Okay, let's see here. And I clicked on the thing, right? Or no, did I not? Is it already streaming? I am live streaming. Of course. Somewhere or other, it's happening.
On YouTube, it says.
It says so, yeah. There we go. Okay. So he'll be here in a second.
So we are live?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, I'll check your channel.
It could
yes.
happen. Yeah.
Oh, yes, here we are. So confused, Californian boy, slightly confused Austrian boy, we're gonna manage. So anyhow, while Dirk is rejoining, I hope he'll find the link in a second.
Okay. Oh, I see
let's
it.
talk about the drug wars.
I see the admit right here. He's coming in.
Oh, very good.
Perfect time. So if you're just joining us, we were having sort of a moment. We were trying to do the show, and then there was a breakdown. We're talking about hypnagogic, I guess, light.
Hypnagogic.
Hypnagogic,
yeah.
Hypnagogic. Okay. And this is the idea of microdosing light. Dirk is trying to load his camera. He's got to accept the camera button. But we were about to say, hey, why are we flashing lights in our face like the CIA? Oh, yeah. Germans aren't allowed to eat like ancient German traditional medicine, right? This is something that's been going back for thousands of years. Europeans did not have pharmaceutical opiates from China or fentanyl or whatever. You had the local medicines. So now trying to return to that, they're saying, hey, you can't, but your body produces almost all these things, produce the thing inside your body. Cannabinoids exist in your brain. You're invoking them with a plant, but they're already there. So if we can figure out ways to release this stuff with light, well, unless they black out the sun like in the Matrix, then for a while we should be able to be okay. But Dirk, we were going to talk about the drug war. How's the drug war affected Germany? Like it sounds like you're saying social politically, you're following in suit with the Americas in Britain making these laws. Is that what happened?
Yeah. So at the time when I remember, I wanted to know more about LSD by studying chemistry. Then I changed to psychology and medicine. But at that time, it was a very free atmosphere. And you could see the people going out and also demonstrating their inner feelings and to the outside. But that was very unconventional. And at that time, I also had long hair, and I had to face all these obstacles were put in my way because the people couldn't understand my attitude. And so at that time, LSD was, when I was younger, just still available, but it wasn't legal anymore. And at that time, civil disobedience, preponderance of inner worths, of spirituality, that was not very pleasant for the hierarchical structures that we had. And these were the points where there was some friction, and the power of just prohibiting the use of these substances was used against any drugs, also against cannabis, and this is just ridiculous as we know nowadays.
Right. We've had several guests on the show who've been, from all over the world who have dealt with the drug war. And someone from Washington, D.C. said, the drug war is won. And if you look at America, you've got, the drugs have won the war. And it's not necessarily in a bad way, even. We have maps, we have these programs, but America's starting to allow for, they even have ketamine for anxiety in nasal spray, right? I mean, they have mushrooms in Oregon. Things are becoming different. And the rest of the world that's been copying America's laws, because these drugs have been sold often to America through these countries. I mean, are these countries allowed to start making their own decisions? Is Germany and Europe, going to be allowed to critically analyze these drug laws and make changes? Or how stuck are we? How stagnant is the legal system around that?
Well, at the moment there are some changes, but Europe is very different, with very different laws and very different people and attitudes. So some people it's forbidden and the people don't use it, like in small groups, and in some countries it's forbidden and the people just don't care about it and use it. And so there are many characteristics, but the tendency seems to be to go to legalization because the people use the substances anyways. And at the same time, I'm afraid that it's also a matter of money. And the more pharmaceutical industry is coming into this market, the more certain chemical variations of the natural psychedelics will come to the market. And I think the natural things will be prohibited more and more as it goes on at the moment.
Right. And as more and more synthetics that they can own kind of take over the places of natural medicine and the things that they create side effects for that you can need more medicines for. So where did you grow up? Wo in Deutschland kommst du? Are you from?
Ich komme von Rüsselsheim, that's near Frankfurt. And so there were many Americans at that time. It's a very large air base. And then I moved at the age of 10 to a very Catholic town deep in the south in Bavaria, in Regensburg. And I had to visit a gymnasium, as you call it, before the university. That was Catholic and just for boys.
Wow.
And so it was imprinting my further life, but I got some freedom from the experience of LSD at about 14. And it showed me also some limitations, very rough. It was very, very rough to show it to me. And so I made a pause with them for many years, but I came back to them after I solved my problems with me.
Wow. So do you
Before we continue on the biography, I would like just to insert a few things about the drug war thing, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
So just very briefly, also in terms of, reset stories and background power structures, the way I understand still, and I don't think this is an understatement, Germany and Europe, at least ever since the Second World War, geopolitically is, I'll say this again, a colony of the US. Everything the US did was copied. Much of the culture was imported and copied. Any of the reality shows, even you have any BS shows, they get their franchise copies in Germany. You have the structure is very obvious. You have Atlantic Council, all of these transatlantische Brücke, however they call it, all the journalists are there, all the main media people are there. So it's not a conspiracy in terms of how it connects. Right now, it appears the US is moving towards legalization. In Europe, They don't know what they're doing. They seem a bit confused. If anything, I would also suggest it's moving in a similar direction just because there's no other guidepost. And aside from this, it's very obvious the drug war was set up, number one, because if you remove the ability for any type of rituals and so on, someone had mentioned the German Reinheitsgebot with beer. I never understood this, but it may well be that before people were drinking mushrooms. And I was like, I'd never drink beer. If there's some mushroom in it, some good herbs, like really healthy stuff, I'd drink it all day, you know? But now they make a big deal of it. It's the German, it's the Reinheit, it's the best. No, it's now not, it's worth nothing anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Number one.
None of the Belgians are excited about Reinheitsgebot. I'm just going to be honest. Yeah.
And then you have, you know, the whole Santa Claus story. Why is everybody happy at Christmas? Santa Claus is not bringing you some, you know, nuts or whatever. You don't have to put them in a sock at your chimney or something. He's bringing you mushrooms. And that's why at Christmas or whatever it was back then, everyone was so happy and the family was all in love, because most likely they had ritual mushroom usage, just like even now the Aborigines, for example, and others, once a month they eat their peyote or something for psychological self-reflection and, you know, balancing out the social structure and their own psychology. So to me, it's pretty obvious, just like you mentioned Catholic Church, the control structure with all the priests and all the people who want to tell you what reality is are not interested in you having any type of direct portals, especially not in a, let's say, safe setting and so on, and not just somewhere on the street in a club somewhere, you know, where you can actually integrate and understand these things, because then you become more independent and less dependent on the control structure that's not desired. And last thing, drug wars. Who was the biggest drug dealer? You know, criminals in action. So who was making the money? Who's the biggest mafia? Who's protecting the whole thing? Can only be the government, you know.
Right.
So please, let's not pretend to be more ignorant than we are. And supposedly in the last 10 years, I don't know exactly if this is true, before the current crisis, pharmaceutical companies even lost money, and this may well be because of a resurgence actually of herbal medicine. And at the same time, people are blocking, what is it in France? They blocked some really simple herb, I think Beifus or something like super simple, because they don't want to make people to have their own effective composting anymore. So that's where we are. But the high repression to me just tells me that people are actually reawakening, that we have all these herbal medicines and don't need the Rockefeller snake oil in any of its form to be healthy and have longevity. Yeah, so that's my shtick about this. Thank you.
Yeah. And the only thing I would say is that American TV shows are usually spin-offs of British shows. And it blows your mind if you, with The Office, you know, everything is so Tavistock. But then if you look back and you realize that the British royal family are kind of a Sophia Act German royal family, it's even more ironic how it goes full circle, you know, that we're just copying a copy of a copy and forcing that copy to be imprinted. But Dirk, I was going to also ask you, so you were 14, the CIA gave drugs to a Jesuit boarding school. I don't know, like how do you think that a 14-year-old kid was able to find his way towards LSD in Germany at that time, in Bavaria?
Oh, there's always different types of society that can live parallel to each other if they tolerate each other or look away or just don't look at it. And so at that time also there were the people who had heard of the Beatles, the Stones, the Woodstock area time. And so I think there's also always a group of people who live very untouched and independently from the others. And that's our present problem, not to tolerate other people. And so at that time, it was just a happy time. I had the opportunity to get in contact with LSD, and I thank God for this experience.
Well, you said though it was really trying, it was difficult, and so you spent years afterwards not wanting to do drugs because it was such a strong experience. Is that correct?
Exactly. It was much about orientation in life, and it found me exactly at that point in my life where it's very important to find your orientation. And so it had a deep influence on my further decisions, and that was very important. And I would say bad experiences, was just about very confronting experiences, and on a very basic physical level and on a very basic psychological level.
But it took you a long time to process it. So did at the time that you had it, what kinds of breakdown of your reality, like what things that you believed to take away?
When I took it, it enriched my life. It showed me new worlds in this life, and an approach that is linked very much to, let's say, the aspect of attraction, the law of attraction, the dark matter, the connecting love that is surrounding us and that is in us. And so this was a guideline in the background, and I gave it some more nourish by reading about some books about yoga and practicing it, and also some esoteric literature, going to paranormal psychology, just to get some orientation. And there are many masters out there that tell you at that time what's the best way. And I'm grateful to have found my way to the mystics, and that the most important point can be found in us, in ourselves. And the orientation, our compass, is also embedded in ourselves, and we are the needle that points to the direction where we want to go to. And from this point, I could learn about it, but then I decided to go to the conventional way of the world, just studying, as I was interested in psychology first, but working with handicapped people, mentally handicapped people. I knew that I also had to know more about the medicine, the more physical part of the body. So I studied medicine, and then I worked in the field of neurology, first in the field of research at the University of Munich. And there I was engaged as a beginner in a study group about light, for example.
How old were you when you started studying light? How old were you at that point?
When I came to this point, I was about 30. Mm-hmm. And then I changed to other universities, worked in other fields, changed to clinical field, had a family, went the usual way of being a father and a husband, had my problems in the end some years ago, being divorced now, and paradoxically, or maybe it's in line with that, I'm more free to follow without more responsibility to others, just what I think is the right way. And that's what I'm doing. And then I came to to Engelbert, and we developed this lamp because we had similar approaches, and the lamp was, just unfolding our inner feelings and bring it to the people.
And maybe to give a little bit of a testimony, you say, right? Because I actually know Dirk because we met in Kufstein, I believe, right, Dirk?
Yes.
I think it was in Kufstein, Lebensmittelpunkt. And I was actually able to experience this lamp, but only for like maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And even already there, I would say it was really astounding. I don't exactly know the, let's say, copyright patternings that you use or how relevant they are, but it was certainly interesting. It was like a high-powered LED, I think it is.
Yeah, there are
Uh,
8 of them.
Yes. And so anyhow, even just within the few minutes, I would say I experienced something quite similar to the beginning stages to those who are who know about this of DMT experience, up to like I would say 2.5D. It was just like patternings, but I had also heard from another friend who was able to experience this for a longer time, that there are quite much more advanced states to be reached there as well if one stays with it just a bit longer. So yeah, highly interesting and not surprising. And I think it's, even though maybe it's difficult to get, scientific proof from nature for this, but that the pineal gland and light are connected, I think is not a big secret to anyone engaged in any of these practices. So kind of makes sense why it would work.
Right. And really quickly, I was thinking of like Operation Rubik's Cube. So in, the Monarch programming, and you've probably seen movies like about the CIA Menusteric goats, where not only are they given LSD, but they have lights flashing in their faces. Nothing as extreme or fascinating as what you've created, or even what Japan has in its everyday street life. But so in general, we have flashing LEDs all the time. We're just not aware of what frequency and what PAR density they are. So I wonder, why do you pick the frequencies and PAR densities you pick for the lights? How do you decide what's going to be helpful, or is it intuitive, or?
No, it's the more neurological part. So Engelbert came with the ideas of simulating the near-death experience, and it met the criteria of psychedelic experience. And so we had one focus. And he came with a light bulb, a halogen light, and then stronger lights, and making them even stronger, and asked me from the neurological part what we could add to come close to this near-death experience described in the Book of the Death in Tibet and Egypt, what they experience in this transitional state. And so to help the people to get a kind of distance to this egoism of the life that will end at some time, and some more graceful time will come up, to my opinion. And so he asked me, and then I could get back to my time in the beginning at the research department at the University of Munich, when I could see the effects of light to the brain, and where there was the discussion how to work with it. And in psychology, I was very interested in the psychology of perception, and also of the building up of concepts like in Gestalt psychology. So at the moment when Engelbert told me what he was doing, this came up in just a moment. So there are some criteria to have some effect on the brain. First is, if you have light all the time, it comes to the effect of habituation. The brain just gets used to it. So it loses the effect of being something interesting. And it was about to show the people the light, at least to the people who have eyes to see, but with closed eyes. There are some other criteria just to make a break into the light, and that means to go to frequencies: light, darkness, light, darkness, light, darkness, light, darkness, light, darkness, or light, darkness, like with the rhythm of 24 hours roundabout. And there are other criteria. We took some rectangle stimuli because they have the strongest effect, let's say that, and it's easier to make an objective result out of it. It's easier than with waves, and we have the waves in the light anyways. And so we took some of the criteria. Everyone can see it on the screen of the tablet of the lamp, where there is the program, and we put all the criteria together and had some friends who helped us, and we could get a coffee machine and make a lamp out of it with the help of the friends. And then we made the first experience, and we had to say, it wasn't complete, but it was the first experience with the prototype. And we had to say, wow, that's it. We didn't expect it, what happened with the experience. So I think the experience in the end is much more important than the results of science or some other tellings of other people. It's always the own experience. And that it comes close to the psychedelics experience was proven by the University of Sussex, who made a comparison between the effect of psilocybin and other psychedelics with the effects of the lamp. It comes to the same qualities. And so we have an instrument to go to these realms of perception and experience and transcendent our own concept of ego just with the help of the lamp, that with an effect that was used also in the old ages in the mystery cults in Greece that could be shown. And
can you elaborate on that? You said that they used light hypnosis or any kind of luminance-based therapies in ancient Greece. Can you example of that?
No, it was more, if I understood it, just the tone was not so good. In Greece, it was the mystery cults.
Oh, the mystery cults.
To go to the spiritual sphere, I would say.
Oracles of Delphi, right.
Yes, and Yulia Ustinova of the University of Tel Aviv could see and analyze the responses of people who came out of the light. And she had made studies about the mystery cults, and there was also used the flickering light, and the people reported the same at that time. And that convinced us that we come to an old principle, but just adopted for our modern times. And I think it's not necessary to put LSD in the drinking water, but we can show the light to many people. And it's time to do it, and to do it with many people.
Right. And, it's interesting looking at, again, CIA documents on luminance hypnosis and astral projection and multiple personalities using resonance patterns, controlled behavior. They've talked about using the same technology, not necessarily for good, but for evil. Can we control it? Is that something about this that mind control can be used by yourself instead of by somebody else to control your mind?
Yes, of course. And the present lamp doesn't expose every potential that you could put into a lamp. It was just a starter for me. And I'm sure that other people, may it be KGB or CIA, used these techniques, but according to their personality or approach to the world, to force people to some states, to force people to tell them everything, to force people for anything. And so by finding the right approach in the experience, I'm sure it couldn't be a torture if they use it on you. Right. It would be fun. But some people don't like flickering light, but that's something, a point where there is some connection to, say, some health issues as migraine,
Or
and
autism and what's it called? People have seizures from like Pokemon games. Is that a concern?
yes, I think it has an application in many fields, also in the psychiatric fields of distortion of experience of yourself or your environment. But these points are more medical points. And I wanted to keep the light away from medical aspects where all the specialists are who will tell you what you have to do and to experience. It's still the affair of every person sitting in front of the lamp and making the experience. And therefore, it's not that we put certain frequencies in the software. It's all the frequencies that cover a frequency of minus, say, 1 second, so time lap of maybe 1 hour dark and 1 hour light. And you can go up to the, how do you call it? The borderline of perception for perceiving movement as flickering, time as flickering, and when you perceive it as constant, as in the old film rolls, when the wagon wheel turns backwards at some point. Very interesting point. Besides that, but we go beyond the point where you can't say whether it's flickering or not, and some hertz beyond that, around about 200 or 400 hertz. And other components were also in that. And yeah, it would go to too many details. I think the most important is it should be wide open, not going into the unconscious field, but always in the perceptible conscious field. So not using ultraviolet or infrared and telling the people you should experience this or that when they can't experience it. And also with other components, it's more about offering every aspect of the light, and the person experiencing it can experience the individual reaction of the brain depending of setting as usual, can experience himself as it is a kind of mirror of your state, of the state of your brain. And if you use it, it's beneficial for everybody, but it's not intended to be a health instrument, a medical instrument. And for that, people can fish some frequencies out of it, or some brightness, or some other waveforms, and call it, they are specialists about it. But this is just to offer you every aspect that I know that's important about the light, to experience it consciously without any influence of other people.
So, I mean, I know television now, you've got these OLED TV screens, they're, you know, everyone's staring at these bright lights that are flashing in their face at 60, 280, what is it, you know, 120, 280 hertz. They have these really 260, 280 hertz TVs that are really high flicker rates and everything. Is there something about flicker and strobe? Do you think that television might be bad for you versus good for you? Do you think television could be used the same way for good, or is it just not being used that way?
That's the reason why I went beyond the fusion border of the perception, because these higher frequencies were used to avoid epileptic seizures with the lower frequencies. But that was the only argument. The rest wasn't looked at it, as far as I know, or not so intense. And as I made the experience, there is no short time effect of flickering light beyond the fusion border. But some people tell some different experiences in between, say, 60 or 70 hertz and 200 hertz, where I looked at. But I think it would be interesting if you have more exposure to flickering light, like in the LEDs, even if you can't perceive it.
They also shown, if you take a cannabis plant and you mess with the light, it will turn into hermaphroditic mode, thinking that the world's ending and it has to just produce seeds and figure out a way of surviving some crazy weather change from a volcano or something. Do you think that we have a similar natural disposition to the sunlight cycle, and that a flicker less than 24 hours or whatever it might be, do you think that that maybe we're affecting ourselves because our body's looking for a natural cycle?
Yes, I think that we should get in harmony with the many frequencies, and also that's the 24-hour frequency that are surrounding us. And as soon as we learn to get in harmony with these frequencies, we can manage the situation. As long as we say, oh, I don't want to get in harmony with that, we have a bad starting point, at least. By getting tuned at least to some frequencies, I'm sure, and I could observe it with many people, you can also manage disharmonic frequencies of people around you just by feeling or by their behavior. And that's also one effect.
Often in Eastern Europe and in Northern Europe, there's, during the winter time, excessive suicide rates, which have been linked to darkness, but some have also tried to link them to living at nighttime, awake with lights at night and things like that. What do you think about our emotional health's association with light and darkness?
We were thinking, and I was thinking about going to Sweden, Norway, and all these countries to make some experiences. It never happened. It's still on the plan.
It hasn't happened since COVID still, and you're waiting until COVID opens up more. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's one lamp in Sweden, as far as I know, but it's always also necessary to activate something, and just to put on a light, it's not enough. But I'm sure, as I hear some effects, mainly beneficial effects on the sleep and wake cycle of some people who come to me with sleep disturbances. It could be very beneficial, because we need the night cycle, we need the rhythm, the harmony, when we can go into it. And this has a very strong effect of people, whether their activity is rhythmic or not. And there are some research works in the psychological of occupational psychology, and it always shows that we should get aligned with our own rhythm, outer rhythm, and the external rhythm. And there are some effects, because also people with synesthesia could experience very positive and reinforcing effects in this experience. So I'm sure it could help. And if people don't like it, they can just put the hand in front of the eyes and stop it and say, okay, I know it now, but I don't like it.
So walk me through using this thing, and maybe Raph also you can explain because you did this as well. But tell us, Dirk, how let's say I'm coming in and I want to try this thing out. How does this work?
Most people come as clients into my practice, neurological practice, and also some people who know that I'm also a psychologist. So I have many people with depression, with migraine, with pain problems, with burnout symptoms, and so on. And if someone comes into the practice, I'm talking with them. So after a while, I see whether they are open for some crazy approaches or not. And then I talk about what I'm doing, this microdosing of light. And most people want to experience it. And then I show 2 sessions first. One is 2 minutes to let the people know whether they like it or not, and to let me know whether there are some adverse reactions. And then if everything is okay, I offer a 5-minute session. And in this session, there are more frequencies, more changes of the level of brightness and so on. After the 5 minutes, the people can say whether they tend to the less intense session of 2 minutes or 5 minutes with more intensity.
And do you have your eyes open while this is happening?
No. Yes, you lay down, and that's the lamp, by the way. Here in my room.
Let me. I'm gonna put a spotlight here. Now you can see. Wow, there you go. Okay, and so there's let's see, 8
lamp.
There's 8 lights
on a tripod, and here's the software. Does it come? Yeah, in the camera. So there are white lights and some flashing, some constant lights, and well, the people lay down in front, under the light, or sit down in front of the light, close the eyes, and the instruction is just to enjoy the show. And if anything happens that's disturbing them, then they should tell me, and I can stop the lamp immediately. And so we can go on as they give me the rhythm and the speed. And usually I then make a second appointment after talking about the principles, where they can see longer sessions of 20 to 50 minutes. It's not so much dependent on the duration of the session, but it always takes some time to get into the experience. And from time to time, get deeper into the experience. Of course, you get more trained into this.
Is there any sound involved? Have you messed around with binaural entrainment, or is it mostly, do you listen to meditation music?
Not necessarily. In the beginning, I was on a very puristic way. I just wanted to see the effects also on others. Usually I started with my children as the first guinea pigs, and then with friends, and then also with clients. And I would say, sorry, I was thinking of my children at the moment when I mentioned them.
That's fair. Take a moment, Life's all about taking moments.
Yes. What was the point? It wasn't about my children.
I think
Oh,
we were talking
yes.
about light
Then,
and audio. Oh yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Then we go for 20 to 50 minutes, and I make it in the way that I approach. When I make it more therapeutically, I make arrangements for a block of 3 to 4 weeks, 2 sessions per week. And this with my being the companion to their experience, with the discussion of the experience, and with some discussion about what the people could do between the sessions, because they have also some after effects, afterglow, you could say, and this lasts at least to the evening. And the following days, there could be some reminder of the experience. And then on the 3rd or 4th day, we meet again, make a session, talk about the experience. And so we go on for therapeutic use.
So you say some like immediate positivity, and in what kind of long term? You've been doing this for how long now? How do you feel it's changed you?
In a personal way, or yeah, I more often I did it in the beginning, and then I also had my insights, and now I do it only every now and then, maybe once every week or every month, and just to enjoy it. I had my lessons in my life the last 12 years, and I also know from people who own the lamp that they had some changes in their life, and that's the most important point, to come into some motion.
Some people are thinking, oh, I can just buy a $5 Chinese AliExpress light with a limited, par density and frequency, and it'll just do the same thing. How is it different? What are the things that make it flash at specific rates, and how do you know what frequencies it hits?
Oh, yeah.
Why is your great handmade German scientific tool better than some cheap knockoff on AliExpress? Right?
It's an Austrian tool. I live in Austria, and it's produced here in Kufstein. It's also like-minded, very solid tool. So this lamp that you had seen, that is produced by the company that has a license, and they kicked me out recently. So I don't know about the present developments.
Es tut mir leid.
Pardon?
Es tut mir leid.
Sorry.
Sorry
Dankeschön. Dankeschön. The lamp is stainless steel, and it has some elements like a shock-proof system, and a system that is fireproof. In that sense, it's a sensor in it. If it is falling down, it shuts off so that nothing can burn. That's very important because you need some minimum intensity of the light. It's not only about your brain activity, and the stimulation is more effective if you give some input into it. And so many people use some cheap LEDs, and especially it's not the combination of the constant light with the LEDs, because this principle is patented, as well as some other principles of it. And so it's very complicated, but with the time, technology proceeds. So I don't know how long this is the first and leading thing, but in this expression, it was the first and leading thing for many years, with some medals at invention fairs. And so it could stand its point and help to bring out the message about light, not about a lamp, it's about the light and us and the light.
Right.
And so it's has also another stand, not this tripod, and that's also very massive, and it looks more elegant when used as a lamp. So it's also to be used by professionals who have a practice and can't put a Chinese thing. I'm sorry for that, but it's also the image that it has, and it's quite flexible, so that we have very strong effects also in, although in this software so there are some opportunities or possibilities to use to make more effects, but they have not been used yet, and I'm sure there's also more possibility for the future. It was more about giving out the message. Just look at reality, and that's pure reality. Just light on, light off, and no religion behind it, no belief system, just the experience, and it opens a portal to different worlds if you dive into it.
I would like to reinforce this idea just in general. I have a friend that dealt for many years in like street working and working with, you know, immigrant children in parks in Vienna and all of that. He did all of that, tried many innovative things, nothing worked because the structure is too rigid and, you know, not the right things get funded. Eventually he said, okay, leave all that. What I'm just going to do now is I'll have people take pictures with their cell phones, apply some filters, put it on an art gallery, and just have them talk about that thing, to abstract their own issues, like their own, oh, I'm a Kosovarian, I'm a whatever, something we fight because we fought against the Albanian, whatever happened, you know, in all these wars, just abstract it to, oh, it's a nice picture. We can have a shared experience with a shared methodology. And I think this is a similar approach with the light, that it opens up this space of experience without any dogma, without any ego definition or something. And this can really create also great opportunity just for real life communication and acceptance between any kind of individuals. So I think this abstraction level is really a very important point, and dogma free, just as you said.
I'm curious also in terms of building this the system that you've offered for people. You know, you're saying that it's not necessarily for, you know, medical uses, but do you fear that it might be used again? You know, like there's all these. My first thought is like music festivals hypnotizing people or something like that. Now, it's not my first thought, but when I try to think of if someone were to use this for evil or for the wrong reason. You know, and so I wonder, do you think just knowing about it that you can, it helps you protect yourself, like you can control where it's coming from? Or I mean, how, because this is so good for you, because it's stabilizing something unstable, how bad is it to misuse, right? How dangerous is light, you know, to our systems?
I can't see a misuse of it. Usually the natural stimulation of natural channels of the sensory system doesn't bring you to some addiction. And so I think this point we could avoid. It just doesn't happen. People enjoy it several times, but we could never see someone who's addicted to that. I also made it at festivals, of course, Boom Festival in Portugal, some other festivals, Burning Man in Nevada, and more in a approach to a ritualistic way that is lost with the psychedelics, but I think it's very important also against misuse. And with this use, I could never see some really adverse or bad effect on people. Maybe some confronting experiences, but not bad experiences.
May I put this question around a different way, Xirtus? So, because the thing is, here again, this type of technology, and I think these patterns are public, with like the TV and so on, how to manipulate and hypnotize them. This technology currently is being used against everyone hardcore, because we could be using different frequencies for the screens, for the TVs, for everything, for the power lines, everything. This is being used. I think the difference here, and also why people, maybe some complaining it's expensive, was also my first thought. But the issue is, if it's not deep state funded, you know, Facebook is free for a reason or whatever, right?
Right.
So you know, and if you want to hire an Austrian to build it or something, I'm sorry, it's going to be expensive. Thanks capitalism, as somebody wrote, also correct. So I just like to point it out. And here I think it's not so much, oh, is it dangerous, but how is this already being used in a dangerous and reckless way? Just people have no idea it's being used. And here you have an explicit device. This is what it can do. Of course, it's built to do something positive. People can learn about it, understand it. And then if anything, be more resilient against the nefarious ways it's being used elsewhere and recognize them, you know? That's my thoughts about this.
Well, I think misuse is always there, or the danger of misuse, and it's dependent on the person who uses it. And that was also a reason to go out with a patent. It was not so much a protection of income. It had its aspect of having some income sometime, but it was more about that we could put some idea behind it, and it was our idea to bring something good out to the people. And it was also the response of the people when we did it. So we could protect it and put some kind of stamp on it. It's open. You can see anything that is done on the screen. You can experience it. It's all white light, no colors in it, no motion in the lamp. If you see motion, that it's produced by your brain. And so you can get very close to yourself. And if you learn to look at it in a way that you enjoy it. So at some point, I wanted to coin the word grammophoton. We have the word gramophone in German or Latin for the music. And this thing is playing music for the people with photons. So it's more a music thing. We make sessions not planned for frequencies, but for the people being able to enjoy some kind of music for the visual system. And this empowers people to deal with these aspects, even if there are some negative influences, say by 5G frequencies or other frequencies. The TV, I'm sure it's misused already, but this is misused because people take out only certain aspects of the light. And this is planned to show you every aspect that we could put into it technically at that time.
Wow. You know, it's interesting. Humans, our perception of the world is kind of a brain construct from the signals sent from our senses, and there's a bit of signal delay. So we don't always feel everything right away, and sound takes longer to reach us and things than light. Light's the thing that hits us the first. It's the most instantaneous response that we start building our symbology of our experience of that moment around. I guess you know, are we are we going to be able to unify or harmonize? I've heard some people trying to harmonize 5G with like they have little devices that play a frequency to try to bring you back. Do you think that this could help us harmonize if a few people are seeing it at the same time, maybe a couple that have been fighting with each other? Do you think that there's a light harmonization could be a deep-seated thing to get them back on the same track? I mean,
maybe there is something like that on the way. And I hear about some gimmicks with frequencies also. And this is not my approach to all of this. Maybe there is also some medication outside on biochemical way, or some frequencies physically, and maybe they help. But this is an open thing for everyone. I don't intend something, but I hope that the people who use it can use it to empower themselves to intend something by themselves and realize it. And that's another part of our dealing with the world. And it goes more to our insight, ourself, our experience of ourselves, and not so much about ways, which frequency that I'm afraid of, or I have to be afraid of. It may be important, but if we lose our own potential, then we lose something that I think we shouldn't even think about that.
right. Do you have a community of any kind for people who buy these things that they can share the way that they've been working on it? Is there a Discord yet? Or forum?
We had something like that in the company, but now I'm out of the company. So on the basis of a product, people have to contact the company.
We should set up a chat. Raf, we should talk about this later to help Dirk. We should get like a Discord going so that people can share their approaches with this. I think that'd be really useful.
Yeah, it's more about the experience and the light in general. It's not so much dependent on which instrument, could also be another lamp, but it's about the experience. That's my field, the neurological part and the psychological part, not so much the instrument.
Dude, Planet X, thank you for the £79 for the grift, brother. We appreciate that. That's very nice. So in terms of the world where we're headed, and we're building this alternative to all these things, they're telling us, hey, you should be taking fentanyl, basically. You should get electroshock, fentanyl, work in a gulag.
I want to bring this up because I've just been at a festival where, of course, these things are discussed. Unfortunately, I talked to a Californian, originally Californian, and just because we're talking about the drug wars, and we know, if it is correct, the story with the whole opium wars against China and all of these things, basically countries, even though ultimately they may belong to a similar power structure, effing each other up with drugs. And he told me that fentanyl is so dangerous that if you just put like a pin on your skin or something, it would kill you. And that apparently, supposedly, all kinds of stuff and drugs or street drugs is being laced with fentanyl because it's such a strong.
People are dying from fentanyl all the time.
It's such a strong subduant or something. People are dying all the time because you just take 2 Xanax or something like you usually do, but it's kind of laced, and then you're just dead.
Man,
and oh my God, like what is happening?
I got a call from a friend of mine. He's like 50, 60 years old, and he's got 3 friends that died because they were living in LA and they did some cocaine that had fentanyl in it. I got another friend who lived in New Mexico who died because he took a pill between class or something. He was like studying or something like that, and he didn't have his medication, and he got one from somebody at the college, and it looked like a normal pill, but it had been laced with fentanyl. I knew a guy in Connecticut who was a, janitor, and he was like, super poor, but he spent all day trying to find people who needed fentanyl so he could buy himself some fentanyl in the process of getting them fentanyl. And, it took out like an entire town. And then I've been talking to Jorge Ventura, who is a journalist, and he was talking about in Ohio, 200 people in a weekend dead, an entire county gone. So just people, they're ghost towning parts of the United States. And in Russia, it's just as bad. And it used to be that the opiate crisis was a controlled situation by the CIA, like you said, talking about Afghanistan, and the Soviet crisis is associated with Afghanistan. There's no way you can deny the CIA's opiums is a major part of the Soviet Afghanistan crisis as well. But we're now in a point where China is producing a synthetic alternative that's far cheaper and easier to get across the borders. And then they've got people in Mexico. I mean, people who couldn't come to the United States from China are in Mexico as well. So it's the real melting pot. And then they can bring fentanyl across or to wherever, and you guys are seeing it there too. But it's really disrupting the CIA's market, which might be a good thing, because then the CIA is not going to defend pharmaceutical opiates the same way they used to, because there's just not as much money in it. But the problem is, a lot of people are dying. No one is expecting it. And they're putting it into everything. It's just being mixed into every kind of, when they used to cut things with baby, what's it called? Baby formula. Baby formula is impossible to get now in 2022. I don't know if you've heard about that crisis, but you can get fentanyl and cut it with that instead. So that's where we're at. But that's my drug war rant. I was just going to say, in terms of, they're trying to get everyone to take fentanyl. They're trying to get people to do all these things that are so extreme. I feel like I've heard more negative publicity about light shining and things. They've told us it's going to give you seizures. They've told you it's the worst possible thing for you.
Yeah, don't look into the sun. Don't go out too much. It might burn you or something. The whole sunscreen scam, which is a story unto itself.
Sunscreen gives you cancer. It's true. Sunblock's got that aluminum oxide in it. I don't know. I'm not allowed to say that. I don't know. You know what? I grew up in Santa Cruz. I went to the beach every day. I'm allowed to say that. I know I can say that. It's medically true. There's plenty. I'll pull the papers up. If anyone gives me any trouble, I'll show you that there's some problems there. But okay, so light, I was trying to ask a question. I just kind of ranted for a while. Light is this thing that they tell you to be afraid of. Why do you think that is?
Well, there's indeed this aspect of stroboscopic light, that it can induce an epileptic seizure. Not an epilepsy as a disease, but a seizure. And by this, it has this negative aspect, but as far as I could see the cases when it happened, and it happened also when I did the light sessions, the people, it's not sure about the character of the seizures, it's just body movements. But some people who had these movements said they are working with Kundalini energy, and they showed very strong movements. But there were also movements like in an epileptic seizure, but strange, the people said afterwards they felt better. They had solved some problems, emotional problems, and many of them came back the next day and wanted to have next session and told their friends to come, even if there was the emergency doctor, because they had the seizure during a session. That's fascinating.
Wow.
And epilepsy, I don't want to say it's not a disease, but the epileptic seizure in it, not the disease, seems to have also some very interesting aspects. Maybe that it is solving some blocks more for energy workers. I think in the medical world, you couldn't use that term blocking of energy, but it comes to me that it's a good description of the phenomenon.
I would like to reinforce this idea from the other side. Just now did you mention it? You probably told me before, but now I came to realize, because I have enough experience, let's say, with let's say induced states, and I can 100% confirm this. And it's just interesting here again, even just about the definition, just like people would say, oh, I have mushroom poisoning. Well, do you really, or are you just put in an altered state of consciousness? And a similar question I would ask here is like, is it, and I can't say because I don't know the medical exact definition, but first I was thinking maybe heavy metal poisoning, that someone would actually have like a bad type of seizure. But otherwise, again, it's a matter of definition, because just like you called it movements, it doesn't need to be something that is ultimately uncomfortable or bad. It may often just be people are not used to this happening to them, because they have never been to these states of consciousness where this can happen, like a release of energy, just like you said, you know. And even this, everyone can go read, I think, Peter Levine, the tiger, the shadow of the tiger, or the tiger in the trauma, something along those lines. It talks about body therapy and the basic idea that trauma actually is stored in the cells of your body and in the muscles. So it may well be that these things just elevate your state of consciousness, or however you want to call it, your frequency, to a level where this muscle cell memory gets released, you know, shaken out. And again, like I said, there's psychologists writing books about this, so this is not some, you know, far out there theory. And from this point of view, it makes perfect sense. And again, really, we have to be careful about the definitions. If we call it really a seizure, or it's just like a, you know, release of movement, which is nothing bad, which is probably why people also want to come back the next day and feel good. So thank you, Dirk, for bringing that up again in terms of, you know, Kundalini activation, whatever. Sounds strange, but again, there is, you know, real science or whatever, or repeatable, verifiable ideas behind this.
Regardless of
That's
real.
right.
Oh, go ahead.
And not only in the energy release, the people reported strange experiences, put in sceneries. Like one reported at that time he was taken by angels, and they lifted him up into the sky, into the heaven during a seizure. And this also tells us there is more about it, and we shouldn't make it pathological by talking about toxicity of psilocybin mushrooms, because in the books there is written, in medical books, there is written about the toxicity and not about the enrichment by experience that you reach at a certain level. And so it keeps us away, that just the words and their connotations keep us away from making experiences. And sometimes if we are anxious about something, it could be very worthwhile to go beyond this anxiety and make new experiences.
Completely disregarding all medical and scientific data for just 1 second, I was thinking about, there was a kid I went to school with in elementary school who was autistic, but he was very autistic and he was nonverbal. And one time, and this is a long time ago, before DVDs, we were using a VHS cassette tape in a VCR to play videos, and it wasn't working right. It wasn't tracking correctly. And so the screen was floating up the video, and he usually, you know, had a hard time focusing on anything. But when there was an image that was moving on the screen, strobing up, and he could follow the tracking, his eyes focused perfectly on the screen. And so it was, you know, it was one of the earliest thoughts I had that, you know, if and this is just a thought, right? But if seizures could be induced by the Pokemon game, if TV shows could cause it, if lights and TVs could cause it, maybe it could also cure it. Maybe there is a connection there, because clearly it's invoking something that's already there, and something is happening to someone who's trying to focus. It's about focus to an extent. So if they're hypersensitive to focusing on light, then maybe they can even more than someone who's learned to get up it when they're tired or deal. Some people just push on despite their sensitivity. Maybe he's unable to do that. Maybe he's so sensitive that it's controlling their lives even more than a normal person who's just being subtly manipulated by it, right?
Yeah, I think so. That's similar with migraine, where people are anxious about flickering light or too bright light of the sun. They can get used to this impression and experience some improvement of their disease. And that's the same point. We can go beyond some borderlines that we built up, and my anxiety would be to treat people with epilepsy with light, because I'm out of science. I'm the practical neurologist, consultant neurologist, and I thought, also from experiencing it in my practice, that there is a way to take some people out of a seizure with the help of certain frequencies and intensities. But this would have to be done at a university, of course. Otherwise, would be, yeah.
So I also have a couple.
Dare doing it.
Right, absolutely. I have a couple questions about subjectivity as well. In terms of, does language affect what colors you perceive, or is it literally par density? We're experiencing it. Does everyone experience the same? I guess we don't, because there's colorblind people. But in general, is there kind of is there more harmony, or is there less harmony in what we're experiencing?
When you say colorblind people, some colorblind people could see colors.
Right, but they might not see this. They might not see the same colors. Oh, you're saying that they see extra colors under the light.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So even if they are colorblind for certain colors, they could see it suddenly. So there are many questions about colorblindness and how it's at least doable, makeable, that the people can see some more colors. That's good on its own, good experience. Color blindness.
Do you are you finishing a thought? I'm sorry if I don't want to cut you off if you're still there.
No. I was going to some sceneries where I had the experiences with people, because it's
explain.
funny. I never expected it to happen, and so I'm still fascinated sometimes,
Right?
about what some people told me, and that's about their experiences. One woman came to me with depression and made some sessions, had some improvement, and then sometimes she came back and had some depressive mood again, couldn't see colors at that time, and then she saw the structures arranged to enjoy the structures, and that point of arrangement with the situation, the colors came back again.
Wow.
And also thinking about electric convulsive therapy. In the beginning, I had 2 clients that they had also at next point of their therapy planned in electroconvulsive therapy, but they had 2 or 3 sessions and we could cancel the appointment because they felt well again.
Wow.
Not for all the future, but it shows that there is some very positive element in it, and that we are not only subjected to the stimulation, it's also about our attitude to the situation. Can we arrange with the situation or not? And that's the main point of harmonizing in the words of psychology and not of frequencies.
Man, it's amazing. So do you think that with light, we're going to harmonize our perspectives more? Do you think bring people to see like a more objective universal truth?
I think the people can see their own truth, and we have many truths, as many as maybe people or more. And if we can see our truth and stand for it, we do easier to accept the truth of others. And the people seem to be very peaceful after the experience. So it's a good point to spread this experience by whatever means. It could be yoga, it could be meditation, and it could be this light, to open the eyes for the light. Also, when we go out to the sun, to be grateful for this wonderful thing on our sky.
Right. Well, Dirk, I really appreciate that you took the time. I'm going to show the website again. Is there another place that they can find more information from you?
Oh, this website, I think it's from the company.
Yeah.
There you can find many things. And I'm working on a new website for what I'm doing personally, because up to now I work as a clinical neurologist and on the side way as a psychologist. But the last years have shown me that I have to leave the system, and I'm working on it, working in future in a different field that's not so restricted by the medical, politician, and the pharmaceutical industry.
Right.
So I'll quit this job in the next month.
Congratulations. Well, we'll put a link to wherever, to your Twitter or to your email. And
Maybe
also, yeah, go ahead.
I could send you this, my homepage, because then I will change it the next weeks step by step, because I will step out step by step from the system, and step by step I will offer some new aspect of what I know and I can do.
Step by step, heart to heart. Sorry, that's the first song that comes to my mind. Here's the chat window if you want to send the link, and I can share it on the screen. Do you see the chat window there for Zoom? Or you could tell it to me, maybe.
Yeah, it's probably hard on the phone.
On the phone. What's the address?
I have opened the chat. I'm there.
Oh, okay. Believe in the Germans. And I know you live in Austria, okay? I get it, Österreich. But like at the beginning, the funniest thing to me was when I first was like, where are you from? Your accent's all over the place. You sound like you lived in München, but you also have kind of a Hamburger thing going on. Oh, okay, because you lived in Frankfurt. Okay, but then you moved down into Bavaria. Duh, the Bavarian thing. Oh yeah, we're from Bavaria. Yeah. It's like you've got 3 accents. What do you want from me?
And maybe just to save your honor in that sense, at least from what I read on Wikipedia, however true that may be, after the First World War, supposedly there was a movement in Austria to actually join and be like Deutsch Österreich.
We all saw The Sound of Music. Yeah, The Sound of Music. That's what that movie's about. This is the whole Sound of Music.
I never saw it, so thank you.
You never saw The Sound of Music?
I know.
You've never seen The Sound of Music?
Oh, it's wonderful.
I always think about Roger and Hammerstein, like in New York City, in an apartment, 100 miles from the nearest botanical garden, writing about Edelweiss. No idea what an Edelweiss looked like. No idea what it was like in Austria. Just kind of like, that's a flower, you know. And I think how great it is that they made that completely up. It's just brilliant. But I'm sorry, I had to segue there for a second. The website? I don't see the link. Did you send it here, or where did you send it to?
Oh, sorry, I was in it.
Oh, okay.
Send it to
I'm just
you.
a distracting fellow, I know.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm going back to the.
Oh, Sunny Prophet sent us a
chat.
super chat, so I can take the time to read. Thank you, Sunny Prophet. This man operating a 1-900 number paid by the minute, speaking at this rate of speed and tone, would make a fortune. Yeah, it's true. I mean, one of the things I really appreciate about people that have learned to speak English is they know exactly which words they're choosing to speak, and so it's very clear to the object, and there's no misunderstood word because every word, they know what it means. Most Americans infer value of words not from reading the dictionary, but from hearing it from a 12-year-old who watched it on TV when they were young, and they continue using that word wrong the rest of their lives. And then they get mad at me.
Thank you for explaining that part, Andreas. I always wondered, honestly.
Well, you know, because it's a natural thing to do. Okay, here's the website for Procol. Let me open this up here. Oh, that's the right page. I should pull it over there. This is your personal homepage. Dr. Med Discipline Psychologist Dirk Procol. And this site, we'll have a link to it, and then you're going to start updating it. So within the next month or something, we can hope to find more there. I would hope, yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You can call him. You can call him and email him.
Last months that I moved my practice and decided to change everything.
Did I crash you? Oh no, you're there. Okay, cool. Yeah. So guys, call this number, email this person, and Dirk will also have a link to the Telegram for Team Rabbit Hole for Raphael's Team Rabbit Hole if you're in the Telegram chat as well, so people can answer. You may have some questions going, and I'll invite you to the Discord so you can chat with some people as well. So thank you so much for the time that you took to come here and answer these questions. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me, and it was very interesting and very pleasant to talk with you, and I enjoyed it very much. Thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, see you guys next time on, I guess we're calling this NEUROPA.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarian.
Recent Tartarian. Recent Tartarian. Tartarian. Recent Tartarian. Recent Tartarian.
Hey, everybody, tune in to Recent Tartarians.
Recent Tartarians. Recent Tartarian.